This is the Clear Money Talk podcast, offering up creative solutions for your retirement future through education, choice, transparency, and empathy. Now, your host, CEO and founder of Clear Financial Partners, Tim Claremont.
Hello. Welcome to Clear Money Talk. This is your host, Tim Claremont, CEO and founder of Clear Financial Partners. And as per usual, I am here with my good friend, my colleague, my partner in arms, Tyler Andrews. Tyler.
Hello, everybody. We're excited to be back. We got another fun podcast, lots of information to share with you.
I'm actually really excited about this podcast. I was just on a call this morning with another advisor who is in the United States who's been listening to our Clear Money Talk podcast, and he said he just really enjoys the conversation. So anybody that's listening to this, thank you for listening. The funny thing I keep hearing over and over and over again, he just says, "Man, Tim, you and Tyler sound so similar that I don't know when you're talking and when Tyler's talking." So I think that's, frankly, I see that as a compliment. I appreciate so much the relationship that Tyler and I have together and how much we get a chance to talk with each other. But we've been working together for so long now that we sound that similar.
Yeah, we're like eating the same things now too. We're drinking the same drinks. It's bad, you know. I think it's good, but
I agree. I think it's good too. It's a lot of fun. Frankly, I wish I was as fit as you are, Tyler. If you go to the somethingsmartaboutmoney.com, you can see the little video of Tyler there, and you'll see, he's a better looking younger version of me. They're better looking than I ever was when I was his age. So
I got to stay healthy so we can take care of all of our clients for a very long time.
There you go. That's right. So our question today for our podcast is,
how much should I take out each year in retirement?
And that was Tyler, by the way, in case you weren't sure yet. How much should I take out each year in retirement? Probably one of the biggest questions that we get. A lot of times people come in, and that's the main thing they want the answer to. They're like, "Hey, I've got so much money, and I'm going to retire soon, or I'm going to retire at this time frame. How much should I take out every year? And when should I touch it?" And all that good stuff. So we're going to do our best to give you some insights into how we answer that question. But at the end of the day, that is a very personal question. The right amount to take out is usually a function of how long you're planning on being retired for, how old you are today, how healthy you are today, what your other resources are from a standpoint of income, like Social Security or pensions or things of that sort, and how much money you need versus how much money you want, not to mention the tax consequences associated with touching your money. All of those variables go into the answer to this question. So it's not something I can just say, here's the answer. But I do think we can get you closer to the answer by the end of the podcast than you were before you hit play. So before we go too much further, out of regard to our previous Snapple moments, as you might hear me drink this, the Snapple fact of the day, fresh cranberries can be bounced like a rubber ball.
Wow.
Very interesting.
So that is. We'll have to
go. Total side point. You're never going to forget that now. Fresh cranberries. Now, next time you make cranberry sauce for the holidays or something like that, take the fresh cranberry and bounce it like a rubber ball, see what happens. Not after you already make it into the sauce. That's just going to make whoever's cleaning it up unhappy. But
yes,
the fresh cranberries. Apparently,
I like it.
Bounce like a rubber ball. So as we move on to how much money should we take out in retirement, there are a lot of insights into this. Tyler, where do you think we should start? We can go all over the place.
I was just thinking in my head as you were talking through some of that other stuff, the Snapple comment. I was thinking in my own head, where do we start with this? Because we can start at, there's different phases of our financial journeys. There's accumulation, there's preservation, there's distribution and gifting. There's all these different phases in our financial journey as a person. And that question, how much should I take out each year in retirement, it's going to be different at each phase, right? I mean, someone in accumulation, they're 20s, 30s, 40s, even their 50s, they might be saying, well, I don't know how much I'm going to take out each year in retirement, but I know how much I can save right now. And then you have somebody that has their nest egg already accumulated. They're not doing any additional saving. They're in that distribution phase. And then they're coming to you saying, how much should I take out from that nest egg?
Yeah, you're right. The phase that a person's in, this is Tim talking now in case you're confusing the two of us again. The phase that a person's in, accumulation, preservation, or distribution, those three primary phases of building your wealth to preserving it to taking it out, it is going to affect your thoughts behind the answer to this question. So the question being, how much should I take out of retirement? If you're in the accumulation phase, like you said, it's more of a rule of thumb objective down the road at some point as I'm doing my calculations to try to figure out really how much should I save in order to feel financially independent at hypothetical retirement date. And to do that calculation, you have to back into well, how much income do I want per year when I retire? How old do I plan to retire at? And then if I do take that amount of income, if that's the goose or the egg off the proverbial goose, for example, then how big is that egg relative to the size of the goose? That's that percentage that you're going to draw out. I think probably the one common denominator, whether you're in accumulation, preservation, or distribution, if you're talking about how much should I take out in retirement, the common denominator you really have to think about is this is not a dollar amount answer. You're probably looking for a dollar amount answer when you saw this question, like, how much should I take out in retirement? And you're like, oh, well, I don't know, if I have $1 million, I want to take out, $20,000 a year or $100,000 a year or whatever. That might seem like a reasonable answer. It's easier to understand, but the truth is, it's a percentage answer. We need to give a percentage because it's about how big is that egg relative to the size of the goose. And we know that your retirement portfolio is going to be differing in size. As a listener, you might have $500,000 to retire on. You might have $2 million to retire on. You might have $20 million to retire on. The amount of money that you have in your goose, if you will, is going to change how big of an egg you should take off of that goose. And when we're trying to give you that answer, ultimately it comes down to a percentage. Most people that are asking this question, how much should I take out in retirement, are actually typically saying, how much should I take out in retirement so that I make sure I get as much out as possible without running out of money? Mm-hmm. That's typically the little subtext that most people are asking this question for. How much should I take out in retirement so that I get as much money as possible without running out of money? And if that's where you're coming from, then we can look at some averages. We can look at some averages and say, well, the average retiree tends to retire for a period of about 30 years. Now that's historical. So whether you were, say, 65 to 95 as an average retirement experience, or 60 to 90 or 70 to 100 or whatever that might be, that's about a 30-year period of time. But people are living longer now. And if you retire younger, your retirement might be 40 years, 45 years, 50 years. Who knows? We just don't know. We don't know how long you're going to be retired for. So you have to make some assumptions to answer this question. If we assume the average retirement is 30 years, there have been a lot of studies already done on what is the correct amount to take out as a percentage. What egg off the goose should we draw to make sure we don't run out of money? And if you Google this, you're going to hear all kinds of different rules of thumb. You might see, well, how much should I take out in retirement? You're going to see something called the 4% rule. That's sort of this general rule of thumb that's been out there where generally people are saying, hey, maybe you should draw 4% per year. You're also going to see things challenging the 4% rule. You're going to see, some of the economists and the distribution experts say, you know what, the 4% rule is dead. Now you need to take out 2.5% or 3% or 3.5%. And you're going to see other people that say the 4% rule is ridiculous. You should be able to take out 5% per year or some higher amount. Why does this percentage matter? Well, if you've got $2 million in a goose and you pull out 4% of that each year, that's $80,000 a year. That's a healthy amount of supplemental income in addition to your Social Security or pensions or other monies that you might have. But if you could draw 5% per year, that same $2 million goose is now giving you $100,000 per year. And if you draw 3% per year, now that same $2 million goose is only giving you $60,000 per year. Massive difference between $60,000 a year and $100,000 a year. It's $5,000 a month versus $8,333 a month, right?
Nice math.
It's over $3,333 a month. And that's probably before taxes.
Sure.
That's a big difference in lifestyle. So the right amount of money to take out per year to not run out matters. And we want to get it as high as we can, but we don't want to run out of money. So where do we go from here? 2% is generally speaking, most economists, I don't know any that say that 2% is too high. Most of them are saying that's probably sustainable. Most of the back-tested math, 2% is probably sustainable. 6%, 7%, once you get at those higher levels, most prudent financial advisors and economists are going to say that's too high. If you pulled 10% per year, for example, off of a $2 million goose, that's going to translate to $200,000 a year. If you get a rate of return of 4 or 5% as an example, or even 6 or 8%, you're draining into the goose. Eventually, you're going to run out of money, and if you run out before you die, then the whole point was to not run out. So that, generally speaking, 10% is kind of deemed to be pretty high. Most economists say 6 to 7 is pretty high. So that 4% rule, I think, is a good rule of thumb to target. But if you can get it up to 5, all of a sudden you're getting $100,000 a year on $2 million. And if you have to take it down to 2.5 or 3, all of a sudden you're getting $50K or $60K a year off of that $2 million. And that's just a big difference in terms of lifestyle. So you might say, well, Tim, thanks. As always, listening to you, I get no black and white answer. I'm going to do my best to help get a little bit more granular with this, but it's not an easy thing to answer the question as to how much should you take out. We'll just try to get closer to it. So
absolutely,
Tyler, anything to add?
Well, I was going to say, you know, all your insights are, you know, exactly how I learned this when I first started in the industry. There's prudent withdrawal percentages off your portfolio to make sure you don't run out of money. All that makes sense. Now, if I was a listener, I'd be saying, well, Tim, Tyler, don't the investments matter? You know, if I'm just taking straight from my checking account, I got $2 million in my checking account. That's going to be different than if I had $2 million in bonds or stocks or mutual funds, ETFs, real estate. All these different options that exist and might affect someone's recommendation on how much to take out.
You're spot on, Tyler. Actually, I'm really glad you brought that up. So we don't can this stuff. If you ever watch the video, you'll see it's like we just have this riff where we just go back and forth and are trying to answer the questions or the things that we think you might be thinking. So no, it's spot on to bring that up, Tyler. Thank you for that. One of the first studies that was done, it was right around 2000 on optimal withdrawal percentage. I appreciate you using those words because that's definitely the way I look at it too. Mm-hmm. It's the biggest egg we can get off the goose without running out of money. Optimal withdrawal percentage. And there was a study, it was called the Trinity Study. So Trinity. If you Google it, you can check it out. I think it was by some professors at Trinity College or something.
Sounds right. Yeah.
That's why they started this. And they basically back tested all of these retirement portfolios over a traditional 30-year retirement income experience. They said, hey, okay, if the average retirement experience is 30 years, and people retired theoretically on January 1st of 1950 till January 1st of 1980, that would be a 30-year experience. What was their experience like of their investments such that we could try to determine what the optimal withdrawal percentage would have been, the highest amount of money we could take out and not run out of money. And that was the whole focus of the study. And then they went back and they tested this all the way, I think, back into the 20s. And I want to say every 30-year segment of time was tested as well to at least the beginning of each month, if not daily, over every 30-year segment, thanks to computers. Mm-hmm. There were a lot of neat insights that were discovered from this study. And the first thing that they did is they wanted to try to figure out what's the optimal withdrawal percentage, how much money can we take out per year. But the second thing that was critical was, to your point, exactly what you just asked, what's the best way to invest that money in retirement to get the highest amount of income stream? That was the other question they were trying to answer in the study. And so to answer that question, or at least to narrow in the focus, they tested 5 portfolios. They said, let's take the assumption that everybody invested 100% of their portfolio in bonds. That was one portfolio. And then they said, okay, now let's take the assumption they invested 100% of their portfolio in stocks. And now let's take a look at 50-50, 75-25, and 25-75. And those were the 5 mixes that they tested over all of these 30-year back-tested segments of time. And then they took each one of those 5 portfolios and they said, okay, now what happens if we draw out 2% a year, 3% a year, 4% a year, 5% a year, 6% a year, and so on. And then they looked at the results of all of these studies. It was really quite groundbreaking and pretty brilliant. The first thing that was noticeable in almost all of those 30-year segments of time historically, when they looked at the mix of the 100% bonds, 100% stocks, 75-25, 25-75, or 50-50, there was one portfolio that stood out as generating the most income for a consistent period of time, more so than any of the other portfolios. And I know Tyler probably already knows what the answer is.
I'm
so
smiling because I'm like, yeah.
If I ask this, I'm teeing it up for him. He's going to alley-oop slam dunk that sucker. Here it goes. I know he knows it. If you get this wrong, now you're going to feel really bad. But
yeah,
it's of the 5 portfolios, one was the clear winner in something like 93% of the situations out there. Which one was it?
It's been a while since I read the Trinity Study and geeked out on it, but I believe it was the 75-25 portfolio, Tim.
That is correct. 75% stock, 25% bonds was the winner in the study of the best allocation. And the reason for that was historically 50-50 bonds or anything higher in bonds, 75% bonds, 100% bonds, was just too low of a rate of return on the bond portfolios over that period of time to generate a reasonable amount of additional return to grow the money. Kind of like the bank example you gave me, right? If you put $2 million in the bank and 0% interest in a checking account, and then you pull out 5% a year or 10% a year or something like that, you're clearly going to run the money dry faster than if you got some interest. Mm-hmm. Not to say you can't make interest in a bank. You can. I'm just giving you an example at a 0% rate of return. But the higher your rate of return is on your investment portfolio, the longer the money's going to last, the more you can take out without running out. So when it came to the stock portfolio, the 100% stock portfolio, there were just too many periods of time where if you retired and it just happened to be bad timing, the market just dropped right after you retired and you're pulling money out of that portfolio and you invested 100% stock, you could drain it and run out a lot sooner because the whole portfolio just dropped really fast right after you retired, which is bad luck. So that was deemed to be a little too aggressive. Now, they didn't test 70-30. They didn't test 80-20 between stocks and bonds. They just tested the 75-25. So most of our retirees, if they're comfortable from a risk standpoint, are typically somewhere between 70%, 80% stock and 20 and 30% bonds in their retirement. And again, everybody's situation is a little different. Everybody's risk tolerance is a little different. But that was deemed to be a reasonable allocation approach in retirement based on the Trinity Study, which is an older study. This was done in 2000. So keep that in mind. This is 23 years old. As of the making of this podcast, so it's a long time ago, and a lot of things have happened since then. But next place we get to go is that 75-25 allocation. Say, okay, well, how much money were you able to take out, Tim? What if I did that allocation and I drew money out every single month? What percentage could I take and not run out of money? And that's where it gets really, really exciting and interesting. So if you got $2 million and you pull out 3% per year in those 75-25 allocations with all those 30-year segments of time, according to the Trinity Study, that's $60,000 a year on $2 million. How many of those 30-year segments of time did you drain the goose to zero? Did you run out of money? The answer to that, zero. It was sustainable, 3%, no problem, nobody ran out of money. What about 4%? 4% distribution. 4%, $2 million, $80,000 a year, 75% stock, 25% bond allocation, all those 30-year segments of time. How many of those scenarios did you run out of money? Zero. Which is pretty cool. So, okay, well, 4% was working. What about 5% per year? 5% per year, $100,000 a year on that $2 million goose. How many of those back-tested 30-year segments of time did you run out of money? And the answer was, it was successful. It was either 93 or 97% of the time. I think it was like 93% of the time. So most of the time, it was in the 90s. Over 90% of the time, that portfolio did not run out of money at a 5% distribution rate in a 75-25 mix historically from 2000 backwards. Now, if you go to a 6% distribution, now you're pulling $120,000 a year off of a $2 million portfolio. How many of those 30-year segments of time did you succeed or did you run out of money? It was successful approximately 72% of the time. So 28% of the time it ran out in 30 years or less. Now, most of my clients don't want to take a 1 in 4 shot of running out of money when they go to retire. So we deemed 6% was a little too high. 5% was sort of where we were targeting our distributions back in 2000. But what happened in 2000? March of 2000, the tech bubble bursts. 9/11 happens in 2001. The aftermath of 9/11, 2002. We have 3 successive bad years in the market right in a row. That's right after the Trinity Study came out. And because of that, that reasonably would be considered to change the results of the study. We were at the peak of the market when the Trinity Study was calculated, so maybe that wasn't reflective of real numbers that we should actually use in the real world. Of course, the market came back a lot from 2010 to 2008. Then we have the financial crisis hit, drops down again, comes back till 2012. Then it finally goes back over that all the way up until about 2022 when we saw the market drop 20% last year. And then now since then, it's come back up to about where we were before. So we don't know what's going to happen in the market going forward. And that's just the stock market, not to mention the bond markets, which have had a totally different experience of time as well. So all of those things, you got to factor that in as you're planning and going forward to answer this question, which is, how much should I take out in retirement, right? That's the main question we're trying to answer. So most people felt like 5% was sustainable until that bad 3 years in a row. And then the 4% rule was that's where it was born. That's where the 4%, 4% probably works, even with this change in the environment that's happened. But then with that low interest rate environment from 2000 until about 2010, 2015, the interest rates dropping even more, yields on bonds being even lower. I know they're a little higher right now, but most of the bond portfolios, if the bonds were bought over a year and a half ago, are pretty low interest rates. And consequently, the earnings on the portfolios and the bonds not really that high yet, unless you're buying newer bonds right now. All of that being factored in, most economists feel 2.5 to 3.5 is probably more sustainable as reasonable withdrawal percentages. I don't know if the 4% rule's dead. I think the 4% rule might still be sustainable going forward, so it's still probably a good number to target. 3% is probably a lot safer if you want to be really safe. But for those clients that just don't even want to gamble on this, I mean, this is all a bunch of gambling, right? It's like going to Vegas and putting it on black and spinning the roulette wheel and seeing what happens. I mean, it's a little better now, but it's still risky. You still have some risk. If you just don't even want to have this risk, that's where annuities come in. When you go to an annuity account, whether it's a variable annuity or fixed indexed annuity, if you've got a guaranteed income stream for the rest of your life, you can get withdrawal percentages right now in these kinds of investment accounts where the insurance company will guarantee you that even if your money runs out, they'll keep paying you anyway. You still keep getting the income stream, so your income stream will never run out. And some of those withdrawal percentages, thanks to interest rates going up recently, have come up quite a bit. We're actually seeing some withdrawal percentages in the 5s and even in the low 6s on some of these annuity products that exist. So if you can imagine getting a $2 million goose, a 6% egg, it's $120,000 a year, guaranteed that even if you live to be 150, they still got to keep paying you. That's pretty cool. That was not sustainable in the Trinity study. That there's been really no time in history where I've had the confidence to be able to say, there's an investment portfolio with no guarantees on it that it's okay to pull 6% from. I don't feel like that's something I'd ever feel confident saying, but with an insurance company backing you, I can be confident in that, and that's how annuities work. Sorry, been monologuing for a while, Tyler.
No, it's great.
Throw in some stuff, man. This is just...
It's great. I was like a deer in the headlights that entire time.
You're just
learning.
Nerding out.
We talk about this stuff all the time here, with clients. Me and Tim talk about it as we're, analyzing different portfolios, whatever it might be. So we're always in the weeds on this stuff. But listening to Tim talk about it, just like you guys are as listeners right now, it's always refreshing to hear it. And you always pick up something different each time you listen to it. One of the things that I was thinking about, Tim, as you were talking about a non-guaranteed portfolio of stocks and bonds, whatever mix that might be, and the likelihood of either having enough money in retirement or running out of money in retirement, brought me to that phrase that we call sequence of returns risk, which talks about what your retirement experience might look like depending on how the capital markets, stocks and bonds, how the returns are, in that retirement experience, whether you experience a lot of good returns early on or those good returns don't happen until later on in that retirement experience. And that can drastically affect how much money you can take out in retirement by, ensuring that you don't run out of money.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So Tyler, in that Trinity study, they were just assuming a fixed distribution coming out of that 75-25 portfolio. So if you took, let's say that 5% per year as an example off that $2 million goose, that $100,000 that was sold that year would represent about $75,000 worth of stocks being sold and $25,000 worth of bonds being sold. And that kind of fixed distribution that occurs, if the stock market is down at a particular time, you take a fixed amount of $75,000 out of it, you have to sell a lot more stocks to cover that $75,000 draw. And that can produce exactly what you're referring to, which is sequence of return risk. And you're going to have to Google that because we just don't have enough time in this podcast to go into what sequence of return risk is and all of that. But happy to explain that in a later podcast or obviously you can talk to us, call us, 503-579-1000. That's what we do. We work with clients and help them do retirement income planning. But as far as that risk is concerned, effectively you can drain your money extra fast if you sell the stocks at an inopportune time, if the market happens to be down. So by being more intentional with your portfolio and bucketing it out, we actually use a now bucket, a soon bucket, and a later bucket where we're taking money from the more conservative positions that are not down when the market's down. That can actually improve your distribution percentage, improve your portfolio performance, and make your portfolio last that much longer, even without the guarantees that we were talking about earlier. And taking that kind of bucket approach is really key in terms of balancing and combating sequence of return risk. Think of sequence of returns as a big monster, and we're fighting it by using a really cool strategy. So it's like your Excalibur sword strategy that we're using against this beast, this dragon, this sequence of return dragon. So that's, if you don't use Excalibur, you're just out there with a twig, he's going to roast you. So you gotta have a good plan for sequence of return risk. Otherwise that's just going to beat up your portfolio in your retirement years. We didn't even get into taxes this year, which is another huge part of it. If the goal was simply how much can I take out to get the most and not run out of money, I think we've tackled that question pretty well today. But what you should take out to get the most out of it and pay the least amount in taxes, totally separate and critical question that we would be happy to discuss with you as well, one-on-one, with required minimum distributions, your overall tax consequences, taxes being different in every state, whether you have state income taxes or don't have state income taxes, the current tax rates that exist versus what's going to happen in the next few years when taxes are expected to change based on just the sunsetting that's going to occur, and who knows what they're going to do with taxes over the years ahead. All of that, another huge part of the puzzle. So just because you take the money out of the portfolio, just because you get the biggest egg you can off the goose to try to not run out of money, doesn't mean you have to pay taxes on it. You might just transfer that egg into another portfolio that's tax advantaged, not have to pay the taxes on it. Doesn't mean you shouldn't necessarily still take that egg out. Alternatively, there are other ways to perform distributions and have more favorable tax consequences. A lot of times we talk about golden eggs and platinum eggs off of the goose. Golden eggs are taxable, platinum eggs are tax-free. So we want to have a reasonable balance of golden and platinum eggs to balance your taxes, keep your tax bill as low as legally possible, and that's a big part of what we do in our strategies as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that brings us to a good close for this topic for today.
So.
I hope you've been, your brain might just be like fried. You're doing the deer in the headlights look that Tyler was just looking at me on. But in closing, to sum it up for just the answer, as people are just, said, Tim, I don't have 25 minutes to listen to you. I'm just going to listen to just the answer. Okay. What's just the answer? How much money should I take out in retirement? If you don't want to run out of money and you expect a 30-year to 40-year retirement experience, most people believe that 3% is a pretty sustainable distribution amount if you have a reasonable investment portfolio. 4%, probably okay if you take some good strategies in place, like use the Excalibur we talked about, do a little intentionality between which portfolios do you touch in the now bucket, the soon bucket, and the later bucket. And if you just want to have some guaranteed income streams coming in where the insurance company takes all the risk, you might be able to get as high as a 5 or even a 6% distribution for life, where there's no way to run the risk of running out of money because the insurance company takes that risk for you. Hopefully that gives you the answers you're looking for in that just the answer summation.
It's perfect. It's great. On to our trivia segment.
Yay, trivia time! Okay.
Now, we're recording this on September 5th, 2023 right now.
Okay.
And over the long holiday weekend, we had some unfortunate news for many people in regards to music, which is the passing of our beloved Jimmy Buffett.
Yeah.
So I thought in his honor today we should do a trivia question on Jimmy Buffett.
Okay.
Tim and I both enjoy listening to Jimmy Buffett. So let's test your knowledge on Jimmy. What do you say?
All right, that sounds good. I don't know a ton about Jimmy. I never really reached the status of parrot head. I wanted to be a parrot head, but I have many clients that are parrot heads, and I absolutely love Jimmy. I love playing his songs and singing his songs. They're just so much fun. So if it's lyrics or song based, there's a higher probability of my success. If it's about the life of Jimmy Buffett, we'll see where
we'll
this
just
goes.
have some fun with it.
Yeah,
right?
what do you got for me?
What was the name of Jimmy Buffett's first sailboat? And I'll give you some choices too.
Okay.
So,
all right, I'll take the choices.
We got A, Discovery. We got B, Boat Drinks. We got C, Euphoria. And we got D, Margaritaville.
Well, clearly, Boat Drinks and Margaritaville are both songs. I don't know Discovery or Euphoria as being a song. I don't know. I've never heard him use those words. I would think that his first boat, he would probably, put it in a song or something like that. With all the songs I've heard, I've never heard him say Discovery or Euphoria in any of his songs. So I'm thinking it's either Boat Drinks or it's Margaritaville. Given the popularity of Margaritaville, you would think that it might go there, but
Keep in mind, this was his first sailboat.
I get it. I get your trying to give me a tip or anything else. Maybe it is Discovery, maybe it's Euphoria, but no, I don't care. I'm just going to throw in on Boat Drinks and see what happens. So, Boat Drinks.
I like the Boat Drinks as a name for a sailboat, but it was actually Euphoria.
Oh,
yeah.
Euphoria. Okay, I could see that. His whole life is about living in a state of euphoria.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's cool. Oh man, we're gonna miss him, Jimmy.
Absolutely.
I absolutely love his music. And what's your favorite song, Tyler, of all of the Jimmy Buffett songs? I saw his deer in the headlights. He's like, how am I supposed to pick that? I don't know. Obviously we don't rehearse this, so I just want to hear top of your head. What you got?
Cheeseburger in Paradise.
Oh, that's a solid one.
I feel like you were going to choose that one, though.
That's solid.
Maybe not.
No. There's so many good Jimmy Buffett songs. Cheeseburger in Paradise, solid. So, by the way, I like mine with lettuce and tomatoes.
Oh,
Heinz
nice.
57 and French fried potatoes. Big kosher pickle and a cool
Very
draft
nice.
beer. Good God Almighty, which way do I steer? So, Cheeseburger in Paradise. Love that song.
Yep.
Margaritaville's great. So many good ones. Boat Drinks. You know, a little known song of Jimmy Buffett's is actually, for me, it's still kind of rings the top of the list. I like Pencil Thin Mustache. And if you haven't heard that song before, I encourage you to check it out because it's just fun. It's just this old timey song that references Jimmy Buffett almost being nostalgic as he's thinking about his childhood in this aspect. And it's a fun song. So if you haven't heard Pencil Thin Mustache, give it a listen. I'd say that's probably my favorite. But I love all the others as well, and I'll sing right along with you anytime if we're all hanging out somewhere. And
Absolutely.
Jimmy comes on.
Absolutely.
So, thanks for listening.
Thanks again, everybody.
I think that'll wrap us up for today's podcast. Until the next time. Have a great day.
Thanks.
Investment advisory services are offered through Clear FP Advisors, LLC, or Registered Investment Advisor. Securities are offered through Clear FP Securities, LLC, member of FINRA IPC. Exposure to ideas and financial vehicles discussed should not be considered investment advice or a recommendation to buy or sell any financial vehicle. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. Investments may fluctuate and when redeemed may be worth more or less than when originally invested. Financial professionals are not licensed in all 50 states. To find out if Timothy Claremont is licensed in your state, please contact his office. Clear FP Advisors, Clear FP Securities, and Clear FP Life LLC are not affiliated with nor endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any other government agency and does not provide tax and/or legal advice. Annuity guarantees rely solely on the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the issuing insurance company. By contacting us, you may be provided with information about insurance and annuity products offered through Clear FP, LLC NPN number 194283777 and or Clear FP Securities NPN number 197499604. Any discussion of general investing strategies or specific securities are for conversational purposes only and should not be taken as a guaranteed endorsement or recommendation.